For this project, I made the easy decision of choosing my grandmother on my mother's side, Marion Walker, to interview. It was an easy decision to make due to the fact that she is a completely unique character as far as personality goes, and she is the unelected head of my mother's side of the family. She is a mother of 5 children, 2 boys and 3 girls, including my own mother. She is also a grandmother of 11 grandchildren, 2 girls and 9 boys. I gave her the universal definition of folklore we are all familiar with from this course, turned on the camera, and here are the results.
But I got married when I was 17 years old after I graduated from Athens High School. And a year later, your Uncle Jimmy was born. And then about a year later, your mama was born. And then about a year after that, your Aunt Jenny was born. And then came Denny, and then came Amy. So there were 5 of them. I started real young. But I told each one of those children when they were born, when we were in the delivery room, I said, okay, babies, I said, these are the rules. I said, you're going to go to school, you're going to apply yourself, you're going to be nice, you're going to grow up well, you're going to go to college, you're going to get a college degree so that you can support yourself and any children that you might have. You're going to graduate from college, you're going to get a job, and in a year's time, if you've proven to me that you can do all this, then you can do anything you want. And they did. And your daddy asked your mama to marry him at Christmas time one year before she had finished at the university. She went to Queens, but before she had finished college. And she told him, she said, I'll marry you. And he said, let's get married at Valentine's Day. And she said, I can't. And he said, why not? And she said, haven't finished the rules. Said, I've got to graduate from college, I got to get a job, and then I got to work a year. And she did. Every one of them did. Now, I made one mistake. If you do this, what you say, you've got to do all these things, and then after you prove to me that you can do this, then you can do anything that I approve of. Don't say you can do anything you want to. Because one day, when I was at Nana's house, after she had done all the rules, there were a bunch of slugs out there, and she was out there with salt, putting them all over the slugs. And I said, Nana, I said, this is disgusting. And she said, I have completed the rules. I can do anything I want to. And I didn't have anything to say back, because she was right. She had completed the rules.
You think you could describe our family tradition as far as holidays go?
Well, the Thanksgiving holiday, or the Christmas holiday, or the Easter holiday.
All of them, we got our rituals for each one.
Everybody comes.
Usually.
Usually. We go to the mountains for Thanksgiving and rent cabins in the Cades Cove area up there, and when I first started cooking, of course, when I got married, I didn't know how to boil water, and cooking Thanksgiving dinner was just, I worried about it and stewed about it, and it was awful. I thought, I'll never get this turkey cooked. Now, there's nothing to it. You just stick that turkey in there and wait 2.5, 3 hours and take him out and eat him. But we freeze corn in the summertime to take, freeze butter beans and peas in the summertime to take our frozen stuff. Nana does the grocery shopping in Maryville, and we go and we hike in Cades Cove, and we just have a good time. We have several cabins, and when y'all were little, you'd run back and forth between the cabins, and that's Thanksgiving, and then Christmas comes, everybody comes. I mean, this house, I live in this house by myself, and when I'm here by myself, it feels humongous. When you got 23 other people in here with you, it's mighty small. But everybody comes for Christmas, and most folks come for Easter. We have a huge Easter egg hunt. It started out your daddy hid the eggs, and now you hide the eggs for the younger children. But we used to have two different sections where you'd have older children in one place and babies in the other place, but we don't have any babies anymore, so now it's a free-for-all. Off you go.
Used to be a neighborhood event.
Yeah, it did used to be a neighborhood
Elberton
event.
wide.
Elberton, all your mamas and daddies and Amy's and everybody's friends would come when y'all were little, and you know, we had children running everywhere. All sorts of children at Easter time, and we still do, but not. You know, those children have grown up, gone to college. My mother had a brother that lived on, well, he lived in Valdosta, but he had a house on Sea Island, and we would go to Sea Island every summer to spend a month with my Uncle Reed and Aunt Jenny. And one year when we were getting ready to go, my sister Denise wanted to take her doll and all her doll clothes. I was ready to leave, and she was having to pack all these dolls and doll clothes. And of course, those days we had servants, and the S.B., the maid in our house, was busy ironing Denise's doll clothes, you know, so we packed the doll clothes. And I was just irritated beyond measure that we were wasting time ironing these doll clothes. And this was before air conditioning, so here's Mama and Daddy in the front seat with precious little Denise sitting on the horsey, which was the armrest in the front, and S.B. and Robert and me sitting in the back. And I fixed it so I got to sit by the window, which was of course down, and all the way to the beach. Out the window went Denise's doll clothes and Denise's doll. So when we get to the beach, of course, precious Denise cannot find baby. And I said, I have no idea where baby is. You know, maybe we left baby at home. And oh, she cried, she cried, she cried. It was probably 50 years before I confessed as to what had happened to baby. But it gave me great pleasure as I dumped baby. And I'd wait. I was sitting behind my daddy, and I'd wait until I was sure he was looking, you know, out that way before I dropped something out the window so he wouldn't see it in the rear view mirror. That was one thing I did. And then we played cemetery, and we buried dolls in our cemetery. Not my dolls. Denise and Linda's dolls got buried in the cemetery. I did not bury my doll. My doll's name was Little Miss Redhead. It was a doll with a cloth body and I guess sort of like a paper mache head and arms and legs, and it had this curly red wig, and she's in the cedar chest in there if you'd like to see her. But anyway, the body part would wear out, and my grandfather would have to take her to Atlanta to the doll hospital, and they would stitch her back together. We had a house in the mountains at Lakemont, Georgia. My grandmother and grandfather had a house up there, and we spent most of the summer in the mountains playing and running wild and running up and down the mountain. And you know, I'd leave the house in the morning with a glass jar full of succotash. Do you know what succotash is?
Fruit.
And take that succotash with me and a spoon, and off I'd go into the mountains, and nobody'd see me till I came back. And my Aunt Hattie, who was my grandmother's maid, my Aunt Hattie worked for my grandparents for over 50 years. She worked for them before my mother was born, and she died after Chance was born. So she was there through 5 generations of our family. But she and I would go into the woods to a spring, and we would carry our jar and get water from the spring. And it was the best water you have ever tasted in your life. And we would bring our jar back and put it in the refrigerator and dare anybody else to touch this water. And it was years before my grandfather confessed that the spring emptied into our reservoir, so all the water that came out of the faucet came out of the same spring. But we didn't know that. Off we went to the spring every 2 days to get our jar full of water in the mountains. But, you know, it was fun and a totally different time than now.
In conclusion, the context of this interview I conducted was from my grandmother's point of view. Therefore, I can classify this interview as a first-person narrative. My grandmother told a variety of stories in which she utilized facial expressions, hand gestures, and body language to express her emotions while she recited her past experiences. I primarily heard a majority of these stories from my mother's word of mouth. Her storytelling performance was much different than my grandmother's. My grandmother's versions included much more body language, which enabled me to know how to react to these stories. The style in which my mother told me these stories wasn't bad, just different than the way my grandmother told them. When I recite these stories to the next generation, the context could be changed, the performance will not be the same, therefore the concept of understandardized multiple variation is apparent, also reflecting the dynamistic nature of our folklore. The oral context of this interview can be classified as folklore in more than one aspect. According to Alan Dunes, a folk group is made up of two or more people that share something, so my grandmother and I are by definition a folk group. As two folk, what we conversed about was her war. My grandmother spoke of our family's holiday traditions, some rituals, and the overall life experiences. What I gained from this project is a knowledge of my own family's folklore. My grandmother rarely sits to talk about these types of things, especially on camera. This interview will be treasured by our family and will be passed down generation to generation.